Well, here we are. It is Friday, March 17th, 2023, and this will be the last video we do from here for a few weeks. As I've said in the past, we're we're getting away next week. We'll be heading down to Belize in Central America, heading down to Placencia for a few weeks. And we're really looking forward to it. We've had some rough weather here this past week. We've had snow, rain, sleet off the ocean. It's just been awful. And we're really, really looking forward to getting away. We'll do the video. We'll do a couple of videos from down there. And I'll talk about maybe a little bit about what we've been doing and what we've seen down there. We've been there before. And if you've never been to that little country, consider it the next time you're planning a trip. It's a very interesting place. And the food is excellent, the water is beautiful, and they don't get hurricanes very often. Very rarely, actually, because it's so far south, which is always good. But it's not hurricane season anyway, so we're good with that. And one of the things I wanted to mention was the other day when I was doing some identification assistant replies, I was cleaning those up because that service is now turned off until we come back because next week I won't have the time to do them. I inadvertently launched a couple of them public. And they immediately got hundreds of views, and I got a phone call from somebody who said, gee, you know that you made those public and not private. And I went back and fixed them. But I noticed a number of comments on the video that people liked them, like to see them, even if it's not their item. They like to see how we go about it. So when we get back, I'm thinking of adding a question onto the inquiry form itself, whether or not you would object if we shared the video publicly. And it's something that's up to you. If you say no, it's no. But if you wouldn't mind, I don't give out full names. I just use first names in the videos anyway. And it might be interesting and informative for people that are looking to pick up little tips and see what we do and so forth the rest of the week, among other things. We sell things and do appraisals and whatnot. But we do those replies in the morning typically. And get them out as quickly as we can, though we sometimes get a bit behind because like last week when we announced that we were leaving 2 weeks ago, we got inundated with inquiries because people realized, oh, he's going away for a month, and I need to know now because I'm planning on listing the thing on eBay or thinking of buying something, and I don't have the time to wait. So we got clobbered with pages of inquiries, and that's probably how I accidentally made a couple of them public for half an hour or so. But anyway, give it some thought. Leave a comment about that. We'll talk about that idea some more. It might be a fun thing to do because I've probably done 10,000 of those replies in the last 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of them on there, and it could be fertile ground for sharing information. So worth the thought. All right, now what's going on? eBay last week. It was a good week. Again, another good week on eBay. More and more things coming back to the site. And you have this plate. This was sold by Room Tonic, and I commented on this last week because he was off a little bit on the dating. He dated it as 18th century. It's actually a 19th century plate with an armorial crest in the middle, which is very unusual for 1830s, 1840s Chinese export wares. You see them sometimes, but not often. There wasn't a lot of custom work being done. This was a rare bird, and it did well. Without that armorial crest, this was about $150 to $220 plate. And because of the armorial crest and the very good colors, this was very fine quality all the way around. Good gilding intact and all that. About 9 inches in diameter, 8 inches in diameter. Sold for $610. Good price, nice item. And then over to this rondelle, Silk Dragon rondelle. It wasn't in perfect condition, but it's a very old one. This is it would appear to be an 18th century example, very nicely woven. The wave pattern on it was really good. If it's not Qianlong, it's probably a Jai Jing example, but it got a lot of interest. It was doing fairly well when we decided to add it into the newsletter page last week, and then it did a little better than well, and it took off. And I suspect maybe one of you bought it, and it ended up selling for $5,100. And this same seller has another rank badge. His username is rankbadge38, and he's new to eBay. He's got 0 feedbacks. He's just getting started. He's a seller out in Escondido, California. And he has another rank badge up this week that'll be on the newsletter page. It's a military rank badge. But this one did very, very well. But it was a nice badge. It was a very, very attractive and early. Old rank badges are hard to come by. And this would very easily qualify as the buy of the week. And I suspect it didn't do that well because maybe it's an unusual form. This was a piece of export ware that was put up by the Shangri-La guys, the Chinese ceramics and collectibles, ceramics and collectible dealers. They own a site in the Netherlands called Shangri-La. And you can buy from them directly. You don't have to buy from them on eBay. You can go to their website and it's linked off the homepage on Bidamount on the left-hand side over on the bidamount.com page. I'll show you where it is. If you've never used them, you might want to. If you pop over here, let the page load. Come on, page, load up. And well, anyway, you scroll. There it comes. Scroll down here, and they're in here. Here it is. They're in the green box, and you can go over to their website and shop around if you like. We keep a few dealers on there. In case you've never looked, we have Nicholas Fornery is on here, Marchant, Ralph Chait Gallery, Shack's, William Shack in Hong Kong, of course, and Jensen's in Europe. There's some good. We have a few good dealers there, just for if you want to do some browsing and look at some pretty things, and maybe buy something. That's what they like. And also, Lark Mason's iGavel is on there, and Christina Ortega, Antique Store, and so forth. So check those out once in a while. Don't forget they're there. And anyway, this only sold for $76, and this was an 18th century pot in Amari colors, but it was Chinese, made for the European market. It's based on a European form. It's not a Chinese form, but a very interesting piece. It had a hairline in it, but it was a very unusual piece of porcelain. And many times you find unusual or atypical pieces, and you look at it, and there's a thing that collectors get into, and this is where you got to think outside the box a little sometimes. You'll see something you haven't seen before, and I know a lot of you haven't seen this form before. It's a rare form. I haven't seen this exact one before, but I've seen similar. And people will stay away from them because they don't know how much they're worth. And they're not sure about the dating, and there's too many questions because there aren't enough comparables out there to look at and use to compare to this one, so they just shy away from it. Well, somebody's put up a little bit of courage, and they bought it for $76 on 17 bids. That was a great buy. That's a very interesting piece of ceramic ware, even with the hairline. Without the hairline, the hairline had some impact on the value. Probably took it down by 50% or something, or maybe 60%. But it should have brought, even with the hairline, probably $300 or $400 or maybe $500. It's a very unusual, very rare thing. So, and it was 18th century. So bravo if one of you out there bought it, because that was the right thing to do. Jump on that. And then that very nice teapot that we talked a bit about last week, because I thought it was just so beautifully done. It was just a beautiful example with a monogram on it. The cobalt decoration, underglazed blue, was perfect. Those beautiful strap handles over here, the way the spout is done, all the gilding was intact. This was pretty much a perfect teapot, and it was made in the late 18th century. Just a great example, and everybody loved it. And it ended up selling for $1,225, which you should know is a pretty good price for 18th century teapots these days that aren't from the Yongchen period or excessively enameled, very heavily enameled. This was a fairly simple one, but it was elegant, simple, nice proportions, and it did very well. It got 28 bids. Nice piece of ceramic ware. And then over to the Ming cloisonne box. This was getting some interest at the time we put it up, but it wasn't up to a lot of money. I think it was up to maybe $100 or something. But this was a very nice, it looks like a very nice small Ming, like a patch box or table box of some kind. These giant pits in it. I get a lot of inquiries about cloisonne, and if the surface is completely smooth and flawless, it generally means it's a 20th century piece of cloisonne, generally speaking. And when you see these big pits like this, and you don't see a lot of mixed colors in the cloisons here, mostly solid colors. Generally speaking, they're looked at as Ming or late Ming and early Qing, and that's what this box was. Probably maybe Wan Li to transitional period, somewhere in there. But it was a beautiful little box, and it had a lot of interest. It sold for $4,100, and it was only a couple inches. What was it? 2¼ by 2¼ by 2¼ inches and 2 inches high. Very small little box, but early and in nice condition overall. The pits and stuff come from the firing. That was a problem on early cloisonne examples in China, was that they had pitting and bubbles that would come up through the enamels when it was being heated and fired. And you often see them. If you've ever seen the British Museum did a show on it was just called Ming, I think, and they showed a number of their cloisonne pieces in it. And I remember hearing at the time a lot of people commenting, saying, "Why are there all these pits and these cloisonne pieces?" And because that's how it was. I mean, that was one of the little things that happens to Ming cloisonne. In early Qing and so forth, up into the 19th, 20th century. It was a long time before they were able to make perfectly smooth bodies. The Japanese were very good at it too, but the Chinese, it took them a while to get the enamels to stop being quite so pitted. All right, and then over here to the robe. This was a nice silk. They called it a damask weave. I guess it is technically. This is a type of robe we've seen fairly often. They tend to be late Qing. This was a nice one. It was in beautiful condition, and it brought a pretty good price. Typically, this style of robe brings $2,000 to $3,000. This one went a little over that. It went up to $3,850, and it was sold by she's a textile dealer in San Mateo, California, and her username is 1860 to 1960. And if you look at her site, she has a lot of couturier stuff and clothing and textiles from all over the world. And every once in a while, though, she gets some very good Chinese silks. And she's quite well informed on them, obviously, because that's her specialty. And she gets some good robes once in a while. And we do keep an eye out for her. And if we see this as the seller, we immediately go and check, because she gets nice things. And she had this robe, and it did just fine. It brought $3,850. And then over to the tortoiseshell box, the taboo material that can't be sold on eBay. Well, this one got sold, $1,033. They had misdated it as late Qing. Generally speaking, these boxes are thought to have been made mostly between 1810, 1820, and up to about 1840 or 50. These Cantonese workshop pieces in tortoiseshell, and we know it's tortoiseshell, and you're not supposed to sell them on eBay and all that sort of hokum, but they sell. We've had them before, and here you can see the light and dark areas, very typical of old tortoiseshell, and I don't know what the fuss is about them, but I guess it's the same fuss to do with ivory and elephants. The fact of the matter is that old tortoiseshell and old ivory and all that pose no threat to elephants or old rhino horns, because the ivory and the rhino horns that are being taken today aren't being turned into fake antiques or used. Most of the rhino horns are actually ground up and used for medicinal purposes in Vietnam. And they've made selling ivory now basically illegal in China, so the price of ivory has plummeted. And tortoiseshells have never been a big problem as far as poaching and the art for art, that kind of thing. They may have some other purpose for them, but they decided to just sort of, the way governments do, broadly sweep and just make everything, outlaw everything for every, no matter what the purpose is. So it's that's just my little rant on that. It annoys me greatly. But at any rate, this was a nice carving. It was a very nice carving, and ended up selling for $1,033, which I think was fine. It could have brought more. It could have brought $1,500. They often do, but it depends on who looks at it and whether they need another one if they collect them, because many of them are very similar in style. So if you have one or two of them, you're probably not going to want a third or a fourth. And then over to this was the Tuanhua Li Zitan journals from that organization that was out in California, the Classical Chinese Furniture Group. That was they built up this amazing collection. It's a very sad story, actually, and they got into some tax problems, some financial problems, and all this, and they had accumulated this spectacular collection of Chinese furniture, and they began publishing books on it. Like I said last week, the way they do it, the Chipstone Foundation with American Furniture that they did for many years, and they did these, and they were out of business. And this was a set of 16 of them. And the whole set, I thought it would do pretty well. It did. It ended up selling for $1,075. But if you do the math on it, it's about 50. It's about $60. What is it? About $60 a copy, which is pretty reasonable for good research material, meticulously done with good illustrations. And you can never become a good collector if you don't have a good library. That's the simple fact of the matter. And I urge people to buy reference books whenever possible, especially specialized books like this on Ming furniture, or a specialized book on Qing cloisonne or mid-18th century porcelain. Those books are where you pick up all the information. And, whenever possible, buy books. Buy a book. And if you buy an object you haven't had before, snoop around, go to ABE books or something like that, and find books on the topic and study up on it. And that's how you're going to make your progress. All right. And you can use, of course, the catalogs on our site, too. They're very informative, and they help you out. There's 750 or so books on auction catalogs on there right now. All right. And this was another great buy of the week, and it was mostly because the person who sold it kind of made a mistake on this. This is Carpe Diem Picker, and he I don't know why, because he's an old time. He's been around as a dealer for a long time. He's been on eBay forever. He listed this as a lithograph, and this sure doesn't look like a lithograph to me. And if you flip the thing over, it's on laid paper. Hold on. There you go. This looks like laid paper. You can see the lines in it here. Well, they didn't do lithographs when they were using laid paper typically. This looks like an 18th or 17th century engraving that was colored, and you have this old script across the top. But this kind of paper was only used, was used up. Well, they used it into the 19th century, but not for big sheets like this. In the style, the way this is done, this looks like it was probably done in the 17th or 18th century. I didn't look up who the engraver was, but it was a lovely picture. And somebody picked this up for $15. It only had 3 bids, and I think it's because they listed them as lithographs. And lithographs, people aren't necessarily all that interested in owning a lithograph. But this looks like a colored engraving from the 18th century, at least, maybe older. And it was a Chinese scene. This is not a Chinese. This was not produced in China. This was produced in Europe. But it was just such an interesting picture how the Europeans would depict China. At the time, daily activity, people out, picking things, somebody with a pipe, and camels, which were all over China at that time, and so forth, and then of course the Great Pagoda. So at any rate, somebody got another great buy. That was a fantastic buy. Frame that up, enjoy it, and it was pretty good size. It measured 10 by 16 inches or so. 10 3/4 by 16 inches. So it was a nice size thing, framed and matted. It would make a good wall. And then over to this, the paintings. This was the Qing Dynasty watercolor with calligraphy, with the winter scene. I thought this was a very nice example. It was still in its case. It was probably done in the late Qing Dynasty, possibly early Republic, but it doesn't really matter. Very nicely painted. A really, really nice example. And I happen to love these things. And I love this scene here with a fellow walking with some sticks on his shoulder, another fellow riding a mule, going down over this little drop bridge here, and then the snowy peaks in the background and so forth with a page of script. And framed up, that would absolutely be wonderful to have. Nice example, and it sold for $699. It only had 2 bids. I'm not sure what was going on, but sounds like somebody put their best bid in, somebody else put their best bid in, and that was it, 2 bids, which is a little bit unnerving, I think, if you're the seller on this, and he was leading up to the close with only 1 bid. But the bids were there, and it did. In the end, it did fine. And then over to these, there were 2 of these paintings from the seller. It was this one of the gentleman, and then there's another one here of somebody sitting at a table with scholar's objects with this very interesting looking like a root chair, reticulated root chair. Love that chair. That's that very interesting Chinese vernacular furniture, and they made stools and chairs out of it, little tables and whatnot. And here he is with a table with a giant long-necked turquoise, probably Kangxi period vase, this incense burner, and then his books. Very nice. This one sold for $455, and this one sold, I think, for $350. $345. It sold for $345, and this was from the same seller that had Estate Wonder, same seller that had this one. So we had three bits of art up, and overall he did pretty well. And then over to I thought this was very, very nice. I love the handle on this thing. This very sort of elongated handle, like the tail of a serpent. And here's the head of the serpent coming out here. And then you have this nice cartouche with a woman and child walking before a balustrade underneath a pine tree. And all those classic Chinese scenes. Just very, very nice. And the pot was in excellent condition overall from what I could see. And it ended up selling for $350 with 2 bids. Again, just 2 bids. It's sort of a strange thing to see. 2 bids, 1 bid, that kind of thing. All right. And then this one, let's see here. Let's see here. This didn't sell. Starting bid, $450. It never sold. I don't know why. If anybody knows why this didn't even get a bid, let me know why. It certainly looked to be worth $450 to me. It's 18th century armorial export ware, and I'm a bit perplexed by that. it's all you would think it would get a bid. Maybe I don't know. Maybe people were afraid of $450 for an 18th century platter with an armorial crest on it. I don't know, and I don't think this was a the back of it looks fine. A little bit of kiln grit, that orange discoloration around it. The surface looks okay. I can't think of any reason why it didn't sell. And maybe the color was atypical and some people were wondering if it was authentic. I don't know. At any rate, they did do them that way. And then the little brush pot, this was from Delango Yu. It's hard to pronounce his name. Yu, he sells on here occasionally. He's out in Union City in California. Nice old brush pot, though. It looks like the surface has been refinished, obviously, but it has nice grain in it. And here's a picture of the bottom of it. It's clearly old. And when I saw this at first, I thought I saw the bottom actually before I saw the body, and I thought that's an old brush. That's an 18th or early 19th century brush pot. And then the inside of it looks good, and then when I saw the outside of it in this color, I realized that this pot has been around for a long time, and probably the previous owner thought it would be a dandy idea to sand it down and refinish it, which I think may have been a mistake, but it was still a very, very nice brush pot, and it ended up selling for $899. If you have an old brush pot with old grunge on it and so forth, wipe it down, oil it, do not sand it. Never put a piece of sandpaper to an old piece of wood, ever, unless it's so bad you're just going to paint it. That's the best way to go about it. That's sort of a rule of thumb. You don't sand old wood, because the value in old wooden things is the surface, the patina that develops only through time. And I've been through it many times when we were dealing in American antiques. We once sold a very fine Queen Anne highboy, which is a chest on long legs, if you're not familiar with them, made during around 1740, had a completely original, untouched surface. We sold it to a lady for about $40,000 at the time, and about 4 months later, I was visiting another antique shop in my town, and the dealer said to me, she said, I got a highboy on consignment the other day. She said, and it looks exactly like the one that you had, but it's all refinished. And this woman had had bought the chest and then took it down to a restorer and had him belt sand the surface off of it. And this poor dealer had to tell her that the chest was now worth about $7,000. And she was pretty disappointed. She sanded off $33,000 worth of value, and that can happen. I'm amazed the restorer didn't refuse to do it, but he made $1,000 or so, $1,500 refinishing it, and it looked awful. So the lesson is don't sand old wood, okay? Just leave it alone. If you're planning on sanding it, buy something else. All right, now over here to this section here, let's take a look at some of the things that are coming up this week, because again, there's some pretty good things appearing, and I want to go through them. If I can get the page to finish loading here. Hold on a second. All right, well, we'll start with this one. We'll go back to the other one, and the page figures out how to load itself, I guess. Oh, there it is. There it is. This dish. This is a very nice 18th century Qianlong period bowl. It's not a big one. They made this form and shape in big basins, and we've had them in the past. 12, 13, 14, 15 inches in diameter. This is a smaller one, but beautifully painted. The diaper pattern, the vine and flower border around the outside, the scene in the center, all very, very elegant and restrained. It just started. This is a fairly new listing. I think it's 8 inches or 9 inches in diameter. It's got no bids, and it's been online now for 2 days. This is going to be in the newsletter page. This is a $150 to $225 plate, easy. So if you're looking for something, maybe drop a bid on this and see if you don't get yourself a bargain. That's a nice piece of porcelain, so do check that out. And then over to this, very unusual. This is a Trust Gibbs. This is a guy that started selling fairly recently. He's over in the UK. He's only got about 100 feedbacks. And I've said in the past, he gets interesting things. I don't know who he is. But this is a nice late Ming Chunchi period fish form dish for the Japanese market. Very nice and very rare form. It's got some pitting and stuff in it because these were hard to make. But this is a little sauce dish or side dish. Here's a picture of the bottom. Crusty kiln grit all over the feet and so forth. But this is a pretty interesting and fairly rare bird. And it measures a little over about 7 inches in length. It's not tiny. It's 7 inches long, and but unusual, very unusual. So if you collect that kind of thing, you might want to start tracking this. It's only up to $64. It has 2 days left to go. It closes on Sunday. It will be on the newsletter page, so do check it out. And then over here, there's another fan. We had a nice fan last week, and this one I mentioned last Friday, I think, that it was going to be in here. Beautiful lacquer fan blades, nicely done. It looks like it's in pretty good shape all the way around, nothing to complain about. It's up to $610. You don't have problems exporting this, going from country to country the way you might with some of the ivory examples. This one's all lacquer. And it'll probably end up at around $800 if you want one, and so forth. And again, if you're not familiar with the newsletter page, if you come over to the site, it's up here. It's the second item on the menu, and every Friday we put things in here that we've come across on eBay that we have some searches we run. We have a way to run them so we can pull up material without having to go through all 1 million items listed in the Asian category every Friday, because that would make life impossible. But these are the things that we picked out for last week, and most of them have sold. And then we have another whole list this week. And if you want to be notified and know when this page is updated every Friday, just fill out that little form, give us your email address, and we send out, as many of you know, you get an email, within minutes of that page being updated each Friday. All right, so back to this. This will be on the newsletter page this week. It's a really nice 1830s to 1850s lacquer fan. Very, very attractive. And then these are interesting. These are bookends. And somebody took probably some tiles or panels out of a small screen or something. And these look like probably roughly Tongxi period porcelains. And they fitted them into these little brass with enamel decorated ends. And these are bookends. There's the back of them. These are the coolest bookends you're ever going to own. And there's 2 days left to go. They're only up to $62. They're good. They're like 8 inches tall, I think, something like that. Hold on, 7 1/4 inches tall, so they're not tiny. And it was only a 5-day auction. Don't ever do 5-day auctions. I don't understand that. So I asked a lot about when should you do auctions, and that you should only, if you do auctions on eBay, the only auction you should do are 10-day auctions and start them either on Thursday or Friday night. That's it. And the reason is that you get 2 weekends of lookers. People who buy on eBay, about 40%, 50% of the views that you get on a listing on eBay come on a weekend. And if you can do a 10-day auction and double up on the number of views you get, you're gonna do better. You're really gonna do better. And you want to do, in order to have that, you either post them on a Friday night around 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern time, or Thursday night around 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern time. And it gives you maximum penetration into the collector market, especially for this stuff. All right, so you always give yourself the advantage of having 2 weekends. If you can wait 5 days, you can wait 10. I don't know why anybody would ever do a 5-day auction. It doesn't drive your sales, and it barely lets eBay's algorithm even pick the thing up. It's a great way to buy, though, I have to say, before I go any further. If you can find 5-day auctions, you know how to look for them, you can get some bargains. Because half the time they don't have it. Once an item, the Cassini algorithm on eBay is basically, if an item doesn't have a bid or has a high starting price, you don't get deplatformed, but you certainly don't get a lot of visibility. You want to put things up at a price that give you immediate bids. Let eBay's algorithm kick in. They'll read your title and description. They'll look at the bid activity you're getting, and they will look through their records. They go down through the computer will look at their histories and tell them how that piece will typically do. And if they think they're going to make money on it because they take a commission, they will give you a bump in the search. All right. We did a video on it a few years ago. We've talked about it a number of times on the Cassini algorithm that eBay uses. It's very much like the Google algorithm, but it's for objects. And it's fairly complicated, but the video is worth watching, and nothing has really changed as far as that goes. We did it probably 2 or 3 years ago. All right, now over to this. This thing sold a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Some of you will remember it. Sold for about $6,000. Well, the buyer was a deadbeat, apparently, didn't pay for it, and here they are putting it up again. And this is a problem on eBay. eBay refuses to boot people off. In the real auction world, if you don't pay an auction bill, you basically can't bid anymore. Here in New England, auctioneers, we used to share information, names of people who were deadbeats, people who had written bad checks, and we would have people come to our auctions, and we'd very politely tell them, you cannot register at this sale until you pay off your bills elsewhere, or fix your reputation. And eBay, for some reason, won't do that. I don't know why. And if I ran eBay, you didn't pay for one item, you're booted for a year. And that'll also track IP addresses, so people can't. If they do get kicked off, what they do is they just re-register under a new name, and that's why you see so many bidders, especially out of the mainland China, with 1 or 2 feedbacks. And the reason they only have 1 or 2 feedbacks is because they're constantly getting new accounts in order to use the platform. And eBay has to come up with a way to block IP addresses. Anyway, that's another rant. I'm on full of rants today. I guess it's because I'm going away. I'm excited. All right. Anyway, this is still a very, very fine hot food pot. Still should bring $5,000 or $6,000. So go at it. It's the same pot. There's nothing wrong with it. So go after it. And now this is nice. This is a wood panel. We don't see a lot of wood panels on here. I've sold them in the past, and they always seem to do pretty well. But this is a nice framed wood panel with a fan, and then this a lobed cartouche at the bottom. But the details on this are very nice. His lighting is that good on the primary shot. But the wood is very old. This is old wood. This is nice old wood. If it isn't 18th century, it's early 19th century. But a lot of this looks like 18th century carving, the way it's undercut, the undercarving of the leaves and this Lingbai fungus here and the scholar's rocks. And I love this sort of, fan device that they use at the top here. And then at the bottom you have these very nice lobes with ruyi heads punctuating each of the each of the corners here and here around it, and you have this very nice scene. This would be beautiful with get a little Howard's wax and feed on the wood here and rub it in and then rub it out using paper towels only. As you know, you don't use cloth on these things because if it hooks anything, it'll rip the piece off. Paper towels give way. All right, so always do that. Never use on a piece like this, an old bath towel or a section of bath towel or a face cloth or anything with loops or anything that can hook, because it'll cause more damage than it'll help prevent. And the back of it's inscribed. This is a nice thing. This is a very interesting thing. And how big is it? I forget. It was decent size, as I recall. 22 by 16 inches. Yeah, it wasn't a little small, 8 by 8 panel or something. It was 22 by 16. This is a nice thing. It's up to just $20. There's 2 days to go. It's 18th or early 19th century, but it should bring $600 to $800. So if this doesn't get, it's only got this again. Only has 2 bids so far. This is from a seller in Virginia. The shipping seems reasonable, $40 to send it from Virginia to the Boston area where we are. That's perfectly fine. This is a nice piece of wood. Really is beautifully carved, and it would be a sin if it fell through the cracks, because that's a great thing. So hit it for $200 or $300. You might get it. You might just get it for that. And the bottle, this cobalt ground with gilt decoration bottle. It's a little hard to see because he confused the picture by shooting it on top of this textile. But if you pull it in and look at it, there, see the gilt figure here. There's a bit of wear to it here and there, but this is a nice old bottle vase. There's the back of it. There's another side of it here with the figure. And there's the foot rim, nice, smooth, white. This is not a new thing. This is an 18th or early 19th century thing. Very fine quality porcelain, though, I have to say. It really is. There's the top of it with the white lip running around it. This is a very nice little bottle. It's up to $152. It closes on Sunday, and it measures, 7 or 8 inches? 7.2 inches in height. Yeah, this isn't a huge bottle. Should bring $500 to $700, $500 to $600, somewhere around there. It's got a couple days to go. But if you like monochromes with gilding on them, I know a number of you collect them because they're always interesting to see, especially if the gilding is still there. Often you just see the shadow of the gilding. This actually has the gilding still on it. And I think on a nice stand and away from a busy background, it'll look a whole lot different. Oops. Hold on a sec. All right. Never mind. It's just my wife will grab that. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now, over to this. This is listed as just a Chinese porcelain Famille Rose Qianlong period. What they don't mention is that it's clobbered. This was redecorated in Europe. This is clobber ware. And you see all this decoration. This originally was probably just a blue and white example. And it got to Holland or someplace, and they sat down and added colored enamels to it. And this was a very big, popular thing that was done at the time. And this is a really good piece of clobberware. And it looks like it's in great condition. Check it out. It should do very well. These cider jugs, without the clobbering, are of interest to other collectors sometimes. And they bring, $800 to $1,000, sometimes more, depending on the quality of the work. And this one's only up to $43 with 2 days to go, just a few bids. Worth checking out. That's definitely worth checking out. And then this seller, Silver Kellogg's, he has a number of good silver pieces up. It's up. This one's up to $199. It's by Tuk Chang, 1890s. He was a Hong Kong and Shanghai silver guy, I believe. He's in the yellow book over in the bookcase. The terrific book on Chinese silver, that 1,000-page book that's in the reference library on the homepage. This guy is listed there. It's got a little plaque on there. There it is, Shanghai. The plaque actually says Shanghai Municipal Police Squad. In this, 1906, it was given. It was a trophy. So there it is, $199. It should bring $800 to $1,000 or more, but it's still a nice thing. But it's just nowhere near yet to where the value is. And then this is another thing that sold a couple of weeks ago. It did very well, brought $1,000 or $1,500, and apparently whoever bought it didn't pay for it. So those of you that liked it, I heard from a number of you that really liked this, and we actually had inquiries about this piece. It's back up again, so go buy it. You might get a bargain this time. This is a nice example. This isn't a modern thing. This is an old piece, 19th century Qing, and it's up to just $187. It closes on Sunday also. A lot of the stuff, by the way, just so you know, a lot of the stuff in the newsletter this week closes within the next 3 days for some reason. Everything's sort of log jammed up. So if you're gonna take a look at it, tomorrow, Saturday or something. Spend some time going through it, because a lot of pieces, like I said, end between now and Monday. If there's something here you like, or there's something on the page you might like, I don't want you to miss it. So get after that. All right, now other things that are happening over on the global pages, just quickly. This is, let's see here, I believe this is Heineman's. Leslie Heineman has been getting into some estates lately, and they've actually got a 3-day owner sale, three-day single owner sale going on right now of some very nice things, some very nice Chinese things. And then this will be coming up in 10 days during their contribution to Asia Week. This is a very nice Wutsai porcelain Wanli Marken period jar. Lobed, has a very old stand. I talked about this a few weeks ago on the global member page video that we did. We talked about this and some other things that are coming up that we like. And I like this. They had made old wooden lid and base for it. It's got one bid. It's estimated at 8,000 to 12,000, and I suspect it'll bring 15,000 to 25,000. All right, just as a heads up, because it's a nice piece of porcelain, lobed rare form. The Japanese in Japan, they made a lot of copies of these during the 1900s to 1930s, and you'll see them sometimes, and they often have a little red on the unglazed part of the lip here, up in here. You'll see a little red lines. And if you see those little red enamel lines underneath between where the lid is and the top of the pieces, it's Japanese, it's a reproduction, it's a copy. And they've been around for years. They've been around for years and years and years. And many of them were in good collections for a long time until they found out they weren't right. And then this is a nice plate. This is also at Heineman's coming up in about 10 days. This is a Ming plate. I love this dish. It is fairly small, as I recall, 6 inches in diameter, but with this cobalt ground decoration with dragons running around it and these floating clouds, sort of like, they look almost like fungi, and this brownish red dry glaze on the back. This looks like a nice plate. This looks, if you like Ming pieces, there's the bottom of it. It looks fine. You have a little bit of iron oxide firing up in here, but that nice dry finish on here. This is a heck of a nice plate. The estimate is peanuts, $800 to $1,200. If you want this, throw 3,000 or 4,000 on it to make. You may not even get it. I don't know. I don't know what the crowd is going to do with this, but this is a nice piece of porcelain. And very likely late Ming. And for the Japanese buyers out there, I came across this lot. It's a bit of a mystery. 19th to 20th century. And all of these pieces are fairly typical examples. This is a late Meiji, to Taisho period charger. And then you have this blue and white with green enamel with the kyorin in it and all this. These are all sort of standard later Meiji ware pieces. But this piece is something else. Cobalt ground with the dragons in the middle. This looks awfully interesting, and unfortunately, they don't provide any pictures of the back of it because I would really like to see it. And it comes from a Japanese gentleman who passed away, who was a collector, and I would really like to see the back of that. So if any of you are interested in it, call Heineman's and submit it so I can look at it. No, it'll be over by the time it sells. But at any rate, if you're a Japanese buyer, you want to look at this. You really do. You really want to look at it. The whole lot's estimated at $600 to $800, and I'm going to bet that half the value is put on it because of that plate. But that's a very unusual piece of Japanese Arita ware. And they also have this coming up. This is happening today. It'll be over maybe by the time you see it. But this was part of that sale of the. This is that family. They're selling all this stuff. It's in the home decor section. Nice armorial plate, Mark of England on it. It's coming up, and shortly it'll probably bring $600 to $800 or maybe more. And they're also selling this today. If you're on the global pages, you're very familiar that we've talked about a number of times. It's one of the nicest pink lotus bowls with this rondelle on it that we've seen in years. This is a really nice one. And it's already got 7 bids. It's up. The estimate was $800 to $1,200. It's already up to $3,200, and it hasn't been auctioned yet. And I expect it'll bring a pretty good price. It is 15 inches in diameter, so it's a big bowl. So it'll probably bring $5,000 to $7,000, maybe more. You never know. It's an auction, so it's very hard to predict. And this is there it is, the Crabial collection, and there's part 1, 2, and 3. And a couple of things I wanted to touch on to refresh everybody's memories is this group here. This is sold the other day.
Right.
And you may remember we talked about this pagoda lacquer box in the case. A pagoda lacquer tower, Chinese export, late 18th century, with its original case. I said it a number of times. I've mentioned this for the last few weeks because the estimate was very modest, $3,000 to $5,000. Very rare thing, just a rare thing, especially if you're really into the China trade. This was it, and I think a couple of people just said, "Yeah, I'm getting this," and they just threw at least two people threw some pretty big bids at it. And or set a pretty high bid area. So with the premium and everything, this is about $35,000 for this box against a $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. But the estimate didn't mean anything. It was just that was just the comfort level of the seller. Maybe the estate said, they paid $3,000 or $4,000 for it, so use that as an estimate. Who knows? But very unusual piece of Chinese export ware. And remember it because you're probably not going to see another one for probably 20 years. All right, maybe never, because they often threw those crates away when it came in. And then there was the big porcelain jardiniere. They dated this as 19th century. This is an 18th century jardiniere, and you see them most typically with enamels on them, but they tend to have these very nice mask handles on the ends. There you go. And this one had been originally all gilded, but this very nice underglazed blue decoration, very 18th century, nice iron oxide line running against the foot rim, beautifully done all the way around and in good shape. And we talked about it on the global videos a couple of weeks ago when it was first went up, and I said, it's going to go way over, the estimate, and it did. It sold for, almost 4 times the high estimate at $9,000 plus premium. Actually, it ended up more than 4 times the high estimate because the buyer's premium, I think, is around 25 or 30% there, 30%. So 30% on top of that brings it up to about $11,500. But that's a very nice planter, very, very nice. And they also had a Nanking foot bath in this sale that did very well. And then the rug. And it's a funny thing because these Chinese rugs, typically when you see a rug, Chinese rug in this shape, you think of it as being 2 feet by 4 feet or 5 feet in length. Very typically, that's what they are. That's what most Chinese rugs are. They tend to be fairly small. This rug was enormous. It was 11 feet, 10 inches wide, 23 feet long. This was a beast of a rug, 19th century carpet. They dated it to about 1880, which sounds about right. It was estimated at just $4,000 to $6,000, and it ended up selling for $8,500 plus the premium. But this was just a classic, elegant, big Chinese rug. I really, really like this. And it has some airbrush at the end. There's the area that's a little stronger yellow than the rest of it. And I don't think that's staining. I think that was just the wool lot they were using changed. Because often you'll see shifts in colors in fields of carpets because the weaver's working with a pile of wool that was been dyed. And when that pile of wool is gone, they have to go get another pile of wool. And they don't always match the colors perfectly because they batch them at different times using different mixtures and combinations. It was all done by hand, so you do get variance in color. It's called they refer to that as airbrush, and it just means color shift. But anyway, this was a very, very nice rug. Truly was. I liked it a lot. I love Chinese rugs. And but you need a room for this. It's 23 feet long and 11 feet wide. It's like a giant corridor carpet for a mansion or something like that, or to go up the center of a very nice living room, I suppose, that has a sitting area, 2 ends. You have to work it in. But I don't think it was a bad buy, incidentally. It wasn't that long ago that rugs like this routinely sold for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And antique rugs took sort of a hit over the last 20 years. Now they're starting to come back a bit because people recognize the inherent quality and beauty of hand-knotted, hand-dyed wool and the weaving tradition that goes from China all the way, all the way to Greece. There's a lot of it. Anyway, here we are. So that's about it for the week. It's been sort of a long ramble here. Sorry about that. And we'll be, like I said, we'll be doing a video from down south when we get down into the beach there in Central America. And I'm looking forward to it. And we'll say hey from down there. And leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on the idea about the identification assistant videos maybe making some of them public, especially if they're interesting. We'll talk about it more in a couple of weeks because I don't want to do it to upset anyone. If they don't want their things shown, that's perfectly fine. I won't do it, but some people might, and we'll sort of feel our way into that. All right. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe. And leave a comment. Give us a thumbs up if you had fun with it watching. And see you all in a few days. Alrighty. Bye-bye.